The Factory Maker Argument, Paley 2.0. In this presentation, results will be shown from cutting-edge scientific research in the area of cosmology, chemistry, and biology, showing the calculations of the probabilities of the universe, life, and complex organisms arising through unguided means. The numbers point to practically 100% to a design set up. Initially, the extraordinary cosmic conditions and the unimaginable degree of fine-tuning of the universe necessary for life to emerge will be shown, considering 466 parameters, taking into account interdependencies and presenting the global cumulative probabilistic numbers of the universe being capable of supporting life based on unguided, random occurrences. Secondly, the central argument will be made, Paley 2.0, which is related to the complexity of molecular machinery and cells that are complex chemical factories in a literal sense. Everything conclusively indicates that natural mechanisms, devoid of a mind, are not an adequate explanation, in fact, completely useless, to explain the origin of the natural world. The arguments are based on what are the pillars of intelligent design. First, fine-tuning to achieve a specific function or objective. Second, the generation of a project, plan, or instructional information, or in intelligent design jargon, the specified complexity. And third, the irreducible complexity. Richard Dawkins famously said, "Darwin made it possible to be an intellectually fulfilled atheist." Darwin's theory may directly challenge only a small number of arguments in favor of intelligent design, but unfortunately, despite this, it has been reason enough for many to abandon theism and embrace philosophical naturalism and strong atheism. But what many have missed and have completely ignored is perhaps the most overwhelming argument against naturalism, which is the lack of natural selection before the advent of biological replication, which is a precondition for natural selection and the evolution. But what do you do to keep the naturalist zombie alive artificially? Useless and empty terms such as chemical evolution or evolution on prebiotic Earth are invented, trying to make people believe that evolutionary concepts can also be extended to other areas outside of biology, such as the origin of life. The problem is that in order to have evolution, it needs to have some preconditions, such as self-replication, something that has never been shown to be possible with chemical molecules, such as RNA. In their desperation to extend natural selection, this true naturalist crutch, they even invented the hypothesis of cosmological natural selection, a proposal by Lee Smolin. The idea was that when a black hole collapses, it causes the emergence of a new universe on the other side, with slightly different fundamental constant parameters, such as masses of elementary particles, elementary charge, etc. Each universe can give rise to as many new universes as the number of black holes it contains. This introduces the evolutionary concepts of reproduction and mutation of universes, analogous to models in population biology. Obviously, such phenomena are not observable, making them unscientific according to Popper's criterion. But what puts an end to and takes away the moral of these stories, which attempt to remove a creator from the picture, is the second law of thermodynamics. All energy in the universe has a finite time in which it can perform work, and then the universe enters a stage of thermal death where nothing can happen anymore. So, for this reason, a beginning and a metaphysical cause are not eliminated. Alexander Vilenkin, famous theoretical physicist, explained and showed that all these hypotheses still require a beginning and, consequently, logically, a cause. Claiming that the universe does not need a cause is as irrational as claiming that the manufacturer of your watch is imaginary. William Paley's clock analogy is one of the most famous and influential arguments for intelligent design in the universe. Paley compared the universe to a complex pocket watch. Just like a watch, with its countless perfectly adjusted parts and gears that work in synchronism to fulfill a specific function, measuring time accurately. Thus, this complexity in the universe is strong evidence of an intelligent designer, similar to the watchmaker who designs and builds an accurate watch. Although the analogy has its limitations, it remains a powerful illustration of the need for an intelligent cause behind the observed complexity and design of the universe. While Paley applied his analogy to the universe, I apply it to the most complex chemical factory in the universe, the living cell. But before we got there, a series of events had to occur and extremely specific conditions selected in order for us to begin to consider how life could have arisen on Earth. Let's see which ones. One of those great and powerful things that has been revealed to us in recent times is the unfathomably precise fine-tuning of the universe that is essential to allowing life to exist. The fundamental laws, constants, and initial conditions of the cosmos appear precisely calibrated to enable a life-sustaining environment. Even the smallest variations in their values would make the universe completely lifeless and inhospitable. A minimum set of 30 fundamental parameters and initial conditions was required to operate together in an interdependent manner. If at least one of these factors was missing or without the correct parameters, it would be like a musician in an orchestra playing the wrong note. The entire symphony would be interrupted. In the universe, this would prevent the formation of stars, planets, atoms, and life. It is interesting to note that the most extreme fine-tuning ever calculated refers precisely to the initial conditions of the universe, which is the adjustment of the low entropy parameter at the beginning of the universe. Roger Penrose calculated it to be 1 in 10 carat, 10 to the power of 123. It is not even worth trying to explain the gigantic size of this number of possibilities, among which the correct low entropy parameters would have to be found, to start the universe in the right way to have atoms, stars, planets, and life. An enormous number of diverse factors would be necessary to obtain a universe suitable for hosting life. In my recently released book, The Creator's Signature in the Cosmos, I made a comprehensive calculation based on referenced scientific publications and articles. Considering 466 fine-tuned parameters in physics, cosmology, and astronomy, and taking into account interdependencies, gives us a general probability of obtaining the precise conditions for life. The probability is tiny, with only 1 chance in 10 to the power of 1577 alternatives that would not lead to life. This is an absolutely incalculable, unimaginable, gigantic number. To exemplify the magnitude of this number, imagine that you wanted to win in the Powerball lottery with its already infinitesimal probabilities of around 1 winning ticket out of 300 million. Now imagine that you would win all around 200 lottery games played around the world. Simultaneously, this would not come even close of the odds of obtaining the correct conditions in the universe to have life. This is such an unlikely feat that it is clear to anyone that the chance of success for such an undertaking is very close to zero. Just not to say it's zero. The fine-tuning conundrum is further drastically enlarged by the fact that fundamental constants such as the speed of light and the Hubble constant could theoretically take on any value from a parameter space of infinite or unlimited size. With infinitely many possible values for each constant, the level of calibration required for them all to align within the extremely narrow life-permitting ranges increases to an inconceivable degree, which makes explaining such fine-tuning as a mere coincidence basically impossible. With each constant theoretically having an infinite number, the required level of fine-tuning compounds exponentially, making the observed accuracy seem even more unlikely and implausible without an intelligent designer behind it. For Earth alone, there are 143 fine-tuning parameters, and 23 for the Moon, in order to have the necessary conditions on Earth to be able to host life as we know it. Adding up all the factors, the chance of having the 169 necessary factors by chance is 1 in 10 raised to the power of 169. Also an inconceivably gigantic number. This tiny chance justifies the inference that the probability of finding life on other planets in our universe is also equal to zero. As the words of the psalmist say, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the heavens above proclaim the work of his hands." Now let's move on to the central theme of this presentation. Everything I've said so far are the preconditions for cells that are not only allegorically, but literally, chemical factories, to emerge. We have already seen that, by chance, it is basically impossible to obtain all the necessary preconditions for life on Earth. This supports the first pillar of intelligent design. The fine-tuning of the universe points to a creator. We will now move on to the second and third pillars. We will see that the chance of the first self-replicating cell arising by chance is even smaller. Despite being declared refuted thousands of times, Paley's argument remains alive and valid. Paley wrote, "If one were to stumble upon a clock lying on the floor, even without knowing anything about clockmaking, the complex interrelationship and arrangement of all its parts would force the conclusion that the clock must have had a creator, an intelligent designer who built it with a specific purpose, which is to tell time. This is because the countless parts of the watch are formed, organized, and oriented in such a precise way to achieve the objective of measuring time. Such complexity and purpose could not have arisen merely by chance or accident. Likewise, when we look at the incredible complexity of living organisms, with their complex, interdependent parts working together to sustain life, we are equally compelled to recognize them as products of an intelligent cause or designer. The analogy argues that just as a watch implies a watchmaker, the wonderful complexity and functional design observable in nature also implies the existence of an intelligent creator behind it. Paley did not have the knowledge about molecular biology that we have today. Here's an analogy. Designers, using their intelligence, plan every component and detail of the watch, creating technical plans that specify the exact specifications, materials, and assembly instructions. Projects are printed on copying machines, which transfer the image from digital files to physical paper. Using the blueprint as a guide, the factory's specialized machinery and intelligent human experts carefully manufacture and create and assemble each tiny part of the watch to precise tolerances. Following the prescribed assembly sequence, the watchmaker assembles the various components in an organized manner to produce the final, functional watch based entirely on the original blueprint design. Each step of the process, from the initial conception in a designer's mind to the final product, requires intelligence to create, interpret, manipulate, and transform complex information. The successful transformation of an abstract mental design into a functional, precise, and complex physical object, whose function depends on several interconnected parts, is only possible through the intervention and understanding of intelligent minds at all stages, from the digital drawing of the plans, printing the plans with the specifications, until the reading and execution of the instructions by qualified specialists. The process of producing proteins from DNA is analogous to making a watch. DNA stores the coded instructions for building proteins, like a blueprint/master plan. During transcription, these instructions are transferred to messenger RNA, analogous to blueprints in printing blueprints. Ribosomes read messenger RNA and synthesize proteins, acting as specialized factories. Just as the components of a clock follow a plan to assemble into a functional product, proteins fold and assemble into complex biological structures and systems based on instructions from the initial DNA. It has only been observed that the formation of a concept or plan, as well as its functional implementation, occurs with the involvement of a thinking mind with objectives and prediction or foresight. In biology, the coded instructional information that directs the assembly of proteins, which are literally molecular machines, allows a logical and plausible inference that these systems probably did not arise through random processes alone, but through a guiding intelligence, analogous to a watchmaker behind the design of a watch. William Herschel, 19th-century English polymath, wrote, "If the analogy of two phenomena is very close and striking, while at the same time the cause of one is very obvious, it becomes hardly possible to refuse to admit the action of one analogous cause in the other, although not so obvious in itself." Life can be most succinctly described as chemistry plus information. What we see here is what I call Paley's watchmaker argument 2.0. Cells have an encoded description of themselves in digital form stored in genes, and have the machinery to transform this blueprint, through the transfer of information from genotype to phenotype, into an identical representation in 3D analog format, the physical reality of that description. The cause that leads to the functionality of a machine and a factory has only been found in the mind of the engineer and nowhere else. Cells are factories powered by information. Information memorized in DNA transforms symbols into physical states. John von Neumann was a Hungarian and American mathematician, physicist, computer scientist, engineer, and polymath. He was a pioneering figure who made significant contributions to the study of self-replicating machines, which are systems capable of reproducing themselves autonomously. In the late 1940s, von Neumann became interested in the logical and mathematical foundations of life and its capacity for self-replication. He developed a theoretical model for a self-replicating machine, which he described as a kinematic model composed of a universal constructor and a copying machine. Von Neumann's insights into self-replicating systems and the role of information were truly ahead of their time, as he recognized the importance of information long before the discovery of the structure of DNA and its role as a store of hereditary information in living organisms. Von Neumann's prescient recognition of the central role of information in self-replication was a remarkable conceptual leap, given that the structure of DNA and its function as a genetic code were only discovered in 1953 by Watson and Crick. He made no suggestion about how these symbolic, coded functions in life might have arisen. He commented that the fact that they exist in the natural world is a miracle of the first magnitude. Every factory, with a specific purpose, needs to have a certain minimum number of components. In cells, a central component is DNA, which stores the information of life. Once we have the answer, what would be the minimum genome for life to begin, we can ask interesting questions and calculate, for example, the probability of this genome arising through unguided, natural means. The simplest bacteria that is not an endosymbiont and that does not live inside the body of another organism, establishing a symbiotic relationship with its host. It's called Paleys ubiquae. It is known for being one of the smallest and simplest cells, self-replicating, and which does not obtain its 20 amino acids externally, but produces them through its own pathways. These organisms survive with around 1,300 genes, 1,300,000 base pairs, and encode 1,354 proteins. A scientific research of the minimum number of components needed in a cell to maintain the basic functions of life gave the number of proteins that was very close to the bacteria Paleys ubiquae, that is, 1,361 proteins. According to protein length distributions for the three domains of life, there is an average of about 400 amino acids per protein. Each of the 400 positions in amino acid polypeptide chains could be occupied by any of the 20 amino acids used in cells. If we assume that proteins arose randomly on the pre-biotic Earth, then the total possible arrangements or probabilities of obtaining one that would fold into a functional 3D protein would be 1 to 10 to the power of 520, a truly enormous and super astronomical number. Critics may now complain and say that in a sequence of amino acids in a protein, the position of not all amino acids is crucial to function. There could be variations or mutations, which would have no effect. I agree. We will take this into account in the calculation we will make. So since the number won't be 0, doesn't it have a chance? If we consider the first set of proteins, the proteome of the first cell to arise through unguided mechanisms, the probability of this sequence arising by chance from random molecular interactions, we will have to multiply the chances of a protein 1350 times. The chance is an astonishingly small 1 in 10 raised to the power of 788,000. If we assume that the chance of winning in the Powerball lottery game was one winner among 300 million possibilities, someone would have to win 60,000 times in a row, and would still be far away from the probability of having a functional proteome by random unguided events. This highlights the enormous information hurdle that any naturalistic model must overcome to try to explain the origin of life. I know the argument that proponents of natural mechanisms will propose, that the cell and proteins did not arise all at once, and that only creationists make this claim. Everything happened slowly, step by step, and lasted hundreds of millions of years. In other words, time would be the great ally of naturalists. But it will be? To this proposal, Steve Binner, a well-known researcher on the origin of life, has a response that is a real cold shower. A huge amount of empirical data has established, as a rule, that organic systems, endowed with energy and left to themselves, turn into uselessly complex mixtures, asphalts. The literature reports, as far as we know, Exactly zero confirmed observations where evolution emerged spontaneously from an evolving chemical system. And what is the chance of intelligence creating life? 100%. We know from repeated experience that the origin of projects containing complex assembly instructional information dictating the manufacture of complex machines, which produce products for specific purposes, and the subsequent construction of these machines, the set of processes are always the result of an intelligent mind. Given the facts exposed, my conclusion is that both the origin of the universe and the origin of life point to a creator. I don't have enough faith to believe in chance. If you want to know more about fine-tuning, you will find the book, The Creator's Signature in the Cosmos, on Amazon. If you want to know more about On the Origin of Life, you will also find on Amazon the book, On the Origin of Life in Virus World by Means of an Intelligent Designer, The Factory Maker, Paleys Watchmaker Argument 2.0, which delves deep into the odds to have a minimal proteome and genome to have the first living cell, in as much as other issues related to the hurdles to have a first living cell by natural means. Given the facts exposed, my conclusion is that both the origin of the universe and the origin of life point to a creator. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give a like, subscribe, and share. Blessings.